Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Now, a couple of days ago, I put a video out doing a math analysis on the new event, Heroes Path. Now, obviously, it's not a new event that we know. It's just basically two events that we already have kind of put together in a different system with a different currency. But I was quite negative. The math kind of really hurt in terms of what I was looking at. But I did check over the comments and I did see some people have kind of a consistent sort of concern with the math that I put together. Now, I'm not perfect, so I'm always open to valid criticism. And while some of the comments are a little bit aggressive, a little bit sort of, everything you say is wrong without any sort of details, there were a few people who came forward and kind of said, look, I think you've been a little bit too biased. You've done a lot of good math on the cost, but you kind of washed over a little bit on the sort of rewards you were getting and comparing it to a typical artifact enhancement. So I had a DM from a viewer, Dawido14, who kind of came along and said, look, I think you've been biased. Here is the way that I would have approached it, and tried to basically do a bit of a conversion in terms of trying to convert the Litecoin cost to a typical artifact enhancement. So I did listen, as I'm open to criticism, and I can see where he's coming from. So what we're going to do in this video is kind of take the same approach. We're going to see if we can convert the Litecoin cost and apply it to some of the artifact enhancement and dungeon divers we've had recently, and compare the path and see whether or not actually the rewards we are getting are sort of more efficient than if we were getting a dungeon divers, and was I actually correct in my criticisms of the event, or is the event any good? That's what we're going to do in this video. So let's take a look. What did I do first here? So I took out all the rewards from all three paths. What we're going to do here first is assume that there are no separate paths, there are just three paths, and the goal is to just basically convert a reward into an average coin per reward. So we've got like a 3-star chicken, we get 2 over the first path, I think that's in. The combined cost of that would be 1200. So what we're saying here is they're valuing one 3-star chicken at around 600 Litecoins. When we look at some of the more, multiple ones, we've got 225 energy here. That's for a total of 2,150 coins. So that basically means on average, one energy is worth around about 10 Litecoins when it comes in raw energy. Interestingly, if you get an energy refill, that's 700 coins, that's at 5. So basically a refill rewards you double the amount of energy in terms of coin per energy than a standard sort of energy without the refill. So that's kind of an interesting thing to note. An epic book, we only get 1, so that's 3,550 coins per epic book. Obviously I've got the event keys in here, that's wasted points, that doesn't give you any rewards, but it does unlock another tract. Gems, we get 85 over all of the paths, that for a combined cost of 1450, so that translates into 17 Litecoins per gem. So that's what the first step was. We've established now what one reward equates to in terms of Litecoins. Now that we have this basis, we can go and pull out copies of the artifact enhancement event and the dungeon divers event and translate the rewards and sort of multiply them by this per reward coin average. So just as a point of reference, like I did in my last video, I went and found some YouTube videos. I've pulled out the artifact enhancement event and the dungeon divers event from the Bivald fusion and the one from the Hellhades fusion. Obviously, there are rewards that would be lost here for the fragment and the champions. So that is something to take into account. However, I think, 2 events gives us a good feeling of what are the average rewards per event. There will be some variability. I've known them to do extended dungeon divers. I've known them to sometimes throw in a void shard. Sometimes there is chaos ore, which we obviously haven't got a Litecoin conversion value for. So there'll be a little bit of hit and miss, but it's enough information there for us to have a good summary of, okay, what do we get from an artifact enhancement and what do we get from a dungeon divers? In this example here, this is the Bivald dungeon divers event. We get some silver, gems, brews, arcane. I think it's quite obvious that the reward trees are very much modeled on these events, although there is some variability, and obviously we know the bottom row of this Path of Light is not in any of these events. The legendary book, the void shard sometimes does, sometimes the 5-star chicken, but they're quite rare. But we got the epic book. Pretty much every event I've noticed carries an ancient shard and an epic book. If we compare this then to the dungeon divers from the Hellhades, this is a video from Hellhades channel, we can see we get the similar thing: silver, gems, brews. Here we have got the chaos ore, which I can't value because I don't have a Litecoin conversion, and we get a llama burst. So effectively in this one, we're down 2 rewards we would have normally got in sort of a non-fusion, or potentially, it depends on how you value chaos ore. I'm basically excluding both of those in this calculation because we don't have a Litecoin conversion, and there's, if you look closely, there's a rarity charm. Let's have a look at the artifact enhancement events. So this is the Bivaled artifact enhancement event. Again, energy, gems. Again, we've got 2 slots here that I cannot value, which is the fragments and the chaos ore. With the spirit pots, I'm basically assuming that they would share a similar value to the arcane pots. It's potentially that they might be slightly different, but I think it's close enough for us to say, you know, if there's 5 arcane pots, what the value of 1 arcane pot in Litecoins would be the same of 1 spirit pot. For this assessment. Got a rare book. This incidentally doesn't have an epic book, which is rare. I've noticed they tend to always do, but I think it's because they've given you a chaos ore, and I do think 5-star chaos ore is actually quite low value in compared to the 6-star variant. But that's the Bivaled artifact enhancement, and now we'll take a look at the Hellhades artifact enhancement. So here we go. This is your Hellhades. This is what I meant by there's normally an epic book. We've got an epic book here. Got a little bit more energy in this one. There's a total of 350 than the previous one. And again, we do lose this spot for the rare champion, so I'm not valuing that in this assessment. So now that we've got the Litecoin conversions, we've looked at a few examples of the artifact enhancement. What does it actually translate to in terms of how much does one artifact enhancement event cost in Litecoins if we were to follow the current path of Light's sort of average Litecoin cost per item? What I've done here, I've pulled out the artifact enhancement event and dungeon divers reward. I have listed this in the order in which you get the rewards. Obviously, we know that the further you get in any of these events, it gets more expensive. The gaps between the milestones do increase. But for the purpose of this, we're just going to assume you finish all the light paths and you finish all of the events. So that it's a like for like comparison. We get the energy, the gems, we get the brews, all these costs. I've put a 0 value for fragments because obviously we don't have a Litecoin conversion for that. And then obviously we put all these things down, ancient shard, epic shard. It works out that an artifact enhancement event would require you to have spent 11,317 Litecoins, and the dungeon divers would be 12,278. If we look at the Hellhades dungeon divers and artifact enhancement event, we can see that the Hellhades one is slightly more expensive. It's 13,671. Again, I've zeroed out the rare champions and I've zeroed out the 6-star chaos ore when it comes to the dungeon divers. But it's around about 13,671 for the artifact enhancement and 11,184 for the dungeon divers. Taking into account you have got 2 null values here, not the 1. So how does this translate to the path costs and the sort of assessment I did yesterday? So when we consider artifact enhancement, this is obviously the sheet that I showed yesterday in terms of sort of the requirements for each path. I did make the assessment that all 3 paths were equivalent to a bit better artifact enhancement or dungeon divers with the bottom row. I still stand by that statement. If you look at what you get in an artifact enhancement, it is pretty much the same as all the paths, except for you get a little bit more. I'd say you might get like 20% more than what you would normally do. And then you get that bonus bottom row, that bottom row where you get the legendary book, the void shard, and the 5-star chicken. I think that assessment is fair, albeit a little bit sort of summative rather than detailed. We're doing a detailed analysis here. So how does it actually compare here? Well, if I was to take, just say, one path here, we looked at the last Excel and we basically said, okay, Hellhades artifact enhancement is 13671 Litecoins. So let's go back into this Excel here. Let's change this to 136,700. Oh, that's too many zeros. So now we can look at this path one and we can say, okay, what's the silver differences for that? And actually, to be fair, it is cheaper. You would spend less silver to get the same level of rewards if we did the math assessment this way. In terms of dungeon divers, how does it compare? Well, the dungeon divers was around about 11,000 or 12,000. So let's just assume it's about 12,000 coins. Well, if we scroll across here, let's just change this top row to 12,000. We scroll across. 12,000 require you to burn around about 6,000 energy on stage 20. That is still about 4% more energy. So that's about the same. So in terms of pure dungeon divers and pure upgrades, you're going to, silver wise, you're definitely going to save some silver here. But dungeon divers is a little bit more energy. Obviously, you can switch between the two. As someone was saying, how would you assess this if you were mixing up both sides? You're doing half and half. Well, I would say you just simply halve up both sides. Let's just take an assumption that you're going to do half the amount in dungeon divers and half the amount in upgrading. Well, you would take half the silver cost here and half the energy, and that's roughly how much you would need to cost in a fair assessment. So, does this actually change my perspective? Well, kind of not, and I'll explain why. So let's just have a look at what we had here. We were getting energy, brews, gems, rarity, forge up charms. Now, it's fair to say that most people are probably not caring about these forge charms. Probably a lot of people don't care about the potions. I think they're pretty accessible. The rare book might be really good for sort of newer players, but for sort of late game players, that's not really important. The core hammers, the energy, the ancient shard, and the epic books are probably what people care about here. And then obviously in the path of light, people care about the legendary tome. They care about the void shard. They probably care about the chickens as well. We only have one chicken as an analysis here in the Bivol dungeon diver, so obviously that would be a valuable reward here. The silver, again, it's so small that people don't even probably think that they don't care when they pick that up. It's just a reward because it's not substantial enough for it to make a meaningful difference to your account. 125,000 is probably 0 to 12. It's not enough really. But in terms of things like gems, core hammers, chickens, the gems certainly, and the energy, that's the stuff that people care about. So my point here is you're getting a mix of everything in the artifact event. You're getting energy. Energy only exists in branch 2 of the Path of Light. The gems exist in branch 1. The void and ancient shard only exists in path 3. The problem you still have is, okay, so we've got 11,317. If we were to get all of these rewards, well, say like I want both the epic shard, the ancient shard, and the epic book here. Well, it's not actually 11,317 light coins I'd need to commit. When we look at the path here, we can see that actually, to get the epic book, I have to go down this path. If I want the ancient shard, I also have to go towards path 3. So I have to waste 300 light coins to start with to unlock that path, and then I have to get all the way down to this path here. And the majority of the rewards on this right-hand path are not that valuable. So actually, how much extra would we have to get in terms of light coins? So I've got an assessment here of the paths, so we can have a look. So in terms of getting the epic book, you would need to acquire 11,800 light coins. That would be the sum of light coins you would need to earn from the start of path 2 just to the epic book. Now that is basically the same as the artifact enhancements. You can say they're 1 for 1. They're about the same. Awesome. However, if you wanted also the ancient shard, well, you would have to go down path 3 here, which means you need to go here, all the way down, and then it would cost you another 12,350 light coins to get the ancient shard. So even though the artifact enhancement in terms of light coin conversion is cheaper than one path in the sense that, or almost the same if you wanted the epic book, to get all the same type of rewards, because of the way that they've split these paths up, you would still need to invest 20,000 light coins. And then when you start going to 20,000, look what it does to the math here. So again, so the artifact enhancement was 11,317. We basically said that we needed another 12,350, which translates roughly to, a bit quicker math, 23,000. So now let's put 23,000 here in our points instead of 12,000. That would be for us to get both the ancient shard and the epic book. And now you're back up to that 43%. You're back up to spending twice the amount of silver, or when we look at energy, 100% more energy, or a mix of both. It's to get basically what you would normally get in one of those events. I think what people were trying to say to me was, you know, you need to compare the rewards from an artifact enhancement against a Litecoin conversion. Well, we just did that. And yes, if there was no paths, then this event is good because you save silver, you save some energy, not much, but you save a little bit because you can obviously double dip. The problem is if you want a combined reward, you want the same rewards you get in artifact enhancement, you know, you want to apply that to lighter path, well, you need to go down multiple paths. The other thing that I think is quite egregious here, when we look at path 2 is the one that a lot of people are highlighting to me because it has a legendary book. I'd like to do a little side note here and kind of say, I probably undervalue legendary books compared to the community, purely because in my opinion, or certainly in my experience, I've never really felt the need that I'm in a position where I need books, and I don't really have enough legendaries that I'm dying to get more books. I feel like you get enough books compared to the amount of legendaries you're likely to pull, and if you're spending lots of money on shards and pulling loads of legendary champions, then you're probably in a position where you want to buy the books anyway, so the value goes down again. If you've got a good Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss team, you're getting around about 5 to 10 on a 5 on a really low scale, but I often end up every clan versus clan every 2 weeks having 10 legendary books that I can use as sort of points towards that tournament, and that's been my experience. So I may be undervaluing legendary legendary books. And again, I don't want to be critical of anyone who sits here and says, you know, legendary books are really valuable to me. If that's fine, if you're willing to invest the resources because you value that legendary book, that's absolutely fine. I have no problem with that. But in terms of this analysis here, the majority of the path is 11,800. The last milestone to get the legendary tome is 9,600. So what we're basically saying is 45% of the Litecoin cost of path 2 is the final hurdle. And that is really bad in my opinion. It's a common tactic you do see in these types of models. It is the fear of missing out. You've already invested here, you've already got your way down. Now you feel like I need to invest more, but they actually backload a lot of this into the end of the path. So the behavior they're actually trying to create here is people feel like they're progressing really quickly. Look how quickly I'm getting down my path. And then you hit this wall where you basically have to invest almost double everything you previously invested just to get the item you kind of really want. If this legendary book was not here, you wouldn't really be feeling this is that exciting, because technically the only thing of value in path 2 that you're really getting is some energy and an epic book, because these potions are quite low. The type Forged Charms, people don't really care for the type. The rank and rarity are a little bit better, but the type ones are pretty poor. If you're early game, you'll care about the rare books, but generally you're not that invested, because if you're early game, you're getting them from Clan Boss still. XP boosts, again, like I said before, I've got 17 weeks. Other people have got more. If you're early game free to play, you might be struggling with XP boost. That could be useful, but generally it's quite low at being a 1 day. An event key is wasted. 3 brews are not going to get you anyway. So what you're really getting when you compare it to an artifact enhancement event here, which we were looking at on here, you know, you're getting gems, you're getting fragments. Obviously for the event that would have been something else. You're getting the ancient shard as well. So for the same value of this artifact enhancement event, because this is about 11,318, and we go here and we look at the cost up to the epic book, that's 11,800. That's comparable cost. Effectively you're investing 50% more for that legendary tome, which if you want to do, that's absolutely fine. I have no negativity. So I want to say a quick thank you to Dewedo14 for being quite respectful and also detailed in his response to me. I think it's a good lesson for anyone who kind of comments on videos. You know, if you disagree with my point, I'm really happy for you to disagree. Present your argument to me and then we can have a discussion. That's what he did. He came forward with an idea and an approach which was different and valid. Has it changed my opinion though? No, because in my opinion, the system here still is built for you to waste your resources getting less things than you would normally do. I still think my valid opinion that this is basically an artifact enhancement with slightly better rewards, and then this bottom row. The fact that these bottom rows are on separate different paths and they almost equate to 45% of the total path tells me that really if I want this bottom row, I'm going to have to invest a substantial amount. Now, I know a lot of players are probably going to just get to this legendary book and go, I'm very happy with that. I didn't really want the Void Shard. I didn't really want the 5-star chicken. That's also fine. If you want to just get down the one path, the one path being like 21,000 points, that's still a lot more than what you would spend for the Litecoins on the other path. Obviously, Artifact Enhancement doesn't have a legendary tome. A person in Discord actually made a comment that this was a cool concept of an event, but it was implemented really badly and it was a missed opportunity. It's kind of like another thing we had as well in the store that I want to kind of highlight. So a big shout out to Smiley TK. He does a very good job at sort of structuring and pricing packs and basically making a response to the community to kind of say, hey, should you buy this pack? Is it worth it? Is it a good deal? Is it a bad deal? And one thing we had, which was released into the game about 6 or 7 months ago now, which is a great idea, is a personal pack builder. Often when we see packs in the store, if you spend money, you're looking at a pack which is going to give you something of what you want and then something you don't really want. So when they came up with this personal pack builder, it's like, okay, you can build your own pack. You can get exactly what you want. You might be in a particular phase where you really need books, or you might be in a particular phase where you want to run energy in a dungeon, or you might want to be in a phase where you want to run a lot of arena. You want those brews, whatever you want. Basically build your own pack and then they'll price it for you and then you either pay the money or you don't. That's a great idea. But what we got actually was a forced path restriction. And you can see here on the screen, I've got path 1 looks really good. Pick either books or chickens. Okay, well, I want books. And then path 2, you get brews. And you're like, well, maybe I just want the chickens and the books. Maybe I don't want the brews, but now I'm forced if I want to buy this pack to buy the brews. And 160 brews for what they were offering is quite a lot of money. then you get even worse because now you've got potions. Anyone who runs stage 20 on potion keeps know that you can probably drop 20 to 25 runs in a keep, maybe 30, and you'll get about at least half of those potions. And then the final step then is good. So what you basically get is the first one, you want kind of 2 of those. The last one, you might want 2 of those. And then the next 2 you don't want. It's that kind of concept we got with the Path of Light, where I want the Legendary Tome, and I'd love the Void Shard. But if I want both, I have to invest twice as many resources as what I would normally get if I just did a normal Dungeon Divers. If I didn't think about the bottom row, it's still kind of a similar thing. I still need 20,000 points to get both the Epic Book and an Ancient Shard. I only need 11,000 in a Dungeon Divers. It's kind of, I can understand why people were being critical of me. Perhaps I was a bit negative. I was really hopeful for the event, but I still think, and I still stand by what I said, you're wasting resources on getting less rewards, and they're deliberately doing it during a fusion mid-cycle in order for you to burn your resources. And then we'll probably be in a position in 2 weeks' time where people are sitting here going, I can't do the fusion, I don't have enough resources because I've either burnt through all my silver and I got to go farm spider, I haven't got enough gems, and then I run out of gems to buy ancient shards for the summon, whatever you do. But that's probably what's going to happen. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. I hope this was a fair assessment for those who were critical of my video last time. I'm just working my way down the middle path. I'll see where I get. I'm not overly bothered. If you've got your Legendary Tome and you're really happy, I'm happy for you also. Hopefully we can move on to a different bit of content now. It was very interesting. I really appreciate all those comments and feedback in the last video. Let me know if this changes your opinion of the event. Let me know if you think this is a fair assessment or if I've still missed the mark. And I will catch you in the next video.